You're looking at a photograph from October 1889, taken outside the Whitmore estate in Millbrook County. Four brothers stand in formal poses, their faces solemn beneath derby hats. The youngest, Thomas Whitmore, grips his brother's shoulder with pale fingers. His expression matches the others perfectly, calm, dignified, appropriate for a family portrait. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you believe about death and time. Because Thomas Whitmore had been buried in St. Catherine's Cemetery 3 weeks before this photograph was taken. The parish records confirm his burial on September 28, 1889, attended by 47 mourners. Yet here he stands, solid as his living brothers, casting a shadow identical to theirs. For nearly a century, this image baffled photographers, historians, and medical professionals. The glass plate negative shows no signs of tampering or double exposure. Every expert who examined it reached the same impossible conclusion. Thomas Whitmore appears to be simultaneously dead and alive. The official investigation was sealed in 1891, buried deeper than any grave. What emerged from those files decades later defies rational explanation. You're witnessing something that shouldn't exist in any documented reality. The Whitmore family commissioned this portrait to commemorate their textile fortune. Instead, they created evidence of an occurrence that violated natural law. Dr. Edmund Hartwell, the county coroner, signed Thomas's death certificate personally. He examined the body, confirmed cardiac failure, recorded the time of death. 3 weeks later, he saw this photograph and immediately suffered a nervous breakdown. His private notes, discovered in 1954, contain a single repeated phrase. "The boy came back. The boy came back. The boy came back," written in increasingly erratic handwriting across 17 pages. Hartwell spent his final years in the Riverside Sanatorium, claiming the dead wouldn't stay buried. No one believed him then. Perhaps they should have, because Thomas Whitmore was only the beginning. And this photograph holds secrets that took investigators 50 years to uncover. The truth, when it finally surfaced, proved more terrifying than any supernatural theory. The autumn of 1889 marked a peculiar time in American history. Photography was still an expensive, formal affair requiring long exposures and perfect stillness. Medical knowledge remained primitive. Doctors often couldn't distinguish between deep comas and death. Telegraph lines connected distant cities, but rural communities like Millbrook remained isolated for weeks at a time. The Whitmore brothers controlled the largest textile operation between Albany and Syracuse. Their factory employed over 200 workers and powered the entire town's economy. Parish records from St. Catherine's reveal unusual details about Thomas Whitmore's final weeks. Father Marcus Flynn noted in his register, "Young Thomas complains of persistent coldness, despite autumn warmth." The temperature that September averaged an unseasonable 73 degrees. Yet Thomas wore heavy wool coats and requested additional blankets during confession. Dr. Hartwell's medical ledger, discovered in the basement of Millbrook General Hospital in 1954, provides disturbing context. His entries describe a patient whose body temperature consistently registered below normal human ranges. Subject exhibits all symptoms of hypothermia, yet environment remains temperate. Hartwell wrote on September 15th, "Pulse weak but regular. Breathing shallow. Skin maintains healthy coloration despite reported coldness." The final entry, dated September 27th, states simply, "Patient expired at 11:47 p.m. Cause: cardiac arrest." Yet witnesses reported seeing Thomas walking through town the following morning. Mrs. Elizabeth Cornwell, the postmistress, swore she delivered mail to him on October 3rd. Spoke with young Master Thomas at the estate gate, her diary confirms. Seemed in good health, though mentioned feeling tired from his recent travels. The official explanation claimed grief-stricken townspeople were experiencing collective delusions. But the photographic evidence suggests something far more disturbing. The Whitmore family hired Jeremiah Blackwood, the region's most respected photographer, to capture their portrait. Blackwood used a large-format camera requiring exposures of nearly 30 seconds. Any movement would have created obvious blurring or ghosting effects. Yet every figure in the frame appears perfectly sharp and properly exposed, including Thomas Whitmore, who should have been decomposing in his grave. The implications left authorities scrambling for rational explanations. None of their theories could account for what the camera had recorded. What we documented that day challenged every assumption about life, death, and the nature of existence itself. October 12, 1889 dawned clear and unseasonably warm, with temperatures reaching 78 degrees. Jeremiah Blackwood arrived at the Whitmore estate at precisely 2:30 p.m., as scheduled 3 weeks prior. His assistant, Henry Cobb, helped unload the heavy photographic equipment from their wagon. The large-format camera weighed nearly 60 pounds and required careful positioning on its wooden tripod. Blackwood had photographed prominent families throughout the region for over 15 years. He prided himself on technical precision and had never encountered unexplained anomalies in his work. The four Whitmore brothers assembled on the estate's front steps as requested. William, the eldest at 34, wore his finest black wool suit and gold pocket watch. Charles, 31, stood beside him in navy blue with polished leather boots. Robert, 28, chose gray flannel with a matching vest and silver tie pin. Thomas, who should have been dead, appeared in dark brown wool with brass buttons. I remember thinking how pale young Thomas looked, Cobb later testified to investigators. But grief affects people differently, and I assumed he was still mourning some family loss. The irony of that observation wouldn't become apparent until weeks later. Blackwood spent nearly 20 minutes adjusting the camera angle and testing light conditions. The brothers remained patient and cooperative throughout the lengthy setup process. Thomas spoke little, but responded appropriately when addressed directly. His voice carried the same timbre and inflection family members had known for 26 years. At 3:17 p.m., Blackwood called for absolute stillness and removed the lens cap. The exposure lasted exactly 28 seconds, timed by his precision pocket chronometer. During those crucial moments, all four brothers remained perfectly motionless. No wind disturbed their clothing or hair. No shadows shifted across their faces. The glass plate captured every detail with mathematical precision. Yet something in that image violated the fundamental laws of mortality. Blackwood developed the photograph in his studio that evening, following procedures he'd used thousands of times. The chemicals revealed four distinct figures, each properly exposed and sharply focused. No double images, no ghostly transparencies, no technical flaws of any kind. Just four brothers standing together, as if death had never touched their family. The camera, it seemed, had recorded an impossibility with perfect clarity. The developed photograph reached the Whitmore family on October 15th, delivered by Blackwood personally. William Whitmore examined the image with a magnifying glass, studying every detail for nearly an hour. His face grew progressively paler as the implications became clear. "This cannot be," he whispered, according to Blackwood's written testimony. Thomas was laid to rest 3 weeks ago. I carried his coffin myself. Charles and Robert gathered around the photograph, their expressions shifting from confusion to horror. The image showed Thomas standing among them, solid and present as any living person. His shadow fell correctly across the estate steps, matching the angle of afternoon sunlight. His clothing showed natural wrinkles and proper weight, not the ethereal transparency of spirit photography. Dr. Edmund Hartwell arrived at the estate within hours of receiving William's urgent summons. He brought his medical bag and a portable scale used for weighing evidence. I examined that photograph with every instrument at my disposal, Hartwell recorded in his private notes. The image showed no signs of manipulation, double exposure, or chemical interference. Hartwell had signed Thomas's death certificate after personally confirming cardiac arrest. He remembered the pale, motionless body lying in the estate's front parlor. The funeral service at St. Catherine's had proceeded normally, with proper religious observances. 47 mourners attended, including the mayor, 3 town council members, and dozens of factory workers. Father Flynn delivered a heartfelt eulogy praising Thomas's charitable work among mill families. The burial took place in the family plot, marked by a granite headstone bearing Thomas's name and dates. Yet here was photographic evidence suggesting death had somehow been reversed or circumvented. Professor Marcus Wheaton from the Albany Institute of Natural Sciences arrived by train on October 18th. He specialized in optical phenomena and had debunked numerous claims of supernatural photography. Wheaton brought calibrated measuring devices and chemical testing solutions from his laboratory. His examination lasted 3 full days, documented in meticulous detail. The photographic plate shows 4 distinct human figures, his report concluded. Each exhibits proper dimensional relationships, correct lighting, and appropriate shadow placement. No evidence supports theories of double exposure, chemical manipulation, or optical illusion. The subject, identified as Thomas Whitmore, appears physically present during the exposure period. This conclusion contradicted every natural law Wheaton had studied in 20 years of scientific research. His reputation as a skeptical investigator made the findings impossible to dismiss. We were confronting evidence that challenged the very foundation of mortal existence. Professor Wheaton's investigation expanded beyond photographic analysis into darker territory. He requested permission to examine Thomas Whitmore's gravesite on October 21st, 1889. Father Flynn accompanied the professor, along with William Whitmore and 2 groundskeepers. The granite headstone stood undisturbed, its carved inscription crisp and weather-free. Wheaton noted the surrounding earth showed no signs of disturbance or excavation. Yet something about the grave's appearance troubled his scientific sensibilities. "The soil appears too settled for such recent interment," he wrote in his field notebook. Typically, fresh graves require months to achieve this level of compaction. At William's reluctant consent, they began careful excavation at dawn on October 22nd. The coffin lay exactly 6 feet below ground level, positioned according to church specifications. Its brass fittings showed appropriate tarnish for 3 weeks underground exposure. But when they opened the sealed casket, their discovery defied comprehension. The interior contained Thomas Whitmore's burial suit, arranged as if occupied by a human form. The fabric held perfect creases and natural positioning, suggesting recent inhabitation. Yet no body lay within the silk-lined compartment. Dr. Hartwell examined every inch of the coffin with trembling hands. "The clothing retains body warmth," he announced in a voice barely above a whisper. His medical thermometer confirmed a temperature of 98.6 degrees. The burial suit showed no signs of decomposition, insect activity, or moisture damage. Even more disturbing, the fabric carried Thomas's distinctive scent, bay rum, cologne, and tobacco. Professor Wheaton collected samples of the clothing fibers for laboratory analysis. His portable microscope revealed cellular material consistent with recent human contact. These garments were occupied by a living person within the past 24 hours, he concluded. The implications sent Father Flynn to his knees in desperate prayer. William Whitmore stood frozen beside the empty grave, staring at his brother's abandoned burial clothes. Dr. Hartwell began laughing, a high, brittle sound that carried across the cemetery. "He's walking around," Hartwell repeated obsessively. "The boy is walking around." They resealed the coffin and filled the grave before sunset, but questions multiplied like shadows. If Thomas's body had vacated its proper resting place, where had it gone? The empty grave raised possibilities more terrifying than death itself. Telegraph messages flooded into Millbrook County from surrounding communities throughout late October. Reports described sightings of a young man matching Thomas Whitmore's exact physical description. Mrs. Catherine Aldrich, postmistress in nearby Elmwood, sent the first documented account on October 24th. "Gentleman inquired about mail delivery to the Whitmore estate," her wire stated. Provided name as Thomas Whitmore. appeared in good health despite reported recent illness. Similar reports arrived from Riverside Station, Cooper's Mill, and 3 other neighboring towns. Each witness described identical physical features: medium height, dark hair, distinctive facial scar from childhood accident. Thomas bore that scar from falling off a factory loading dock at age 12. The mark ran 3 inches along his left jawline, too specific for mistaken identity. Dr. Victoria Ashford from the Rochester Institute of Medical Research arrived on October 26th. She specialized in cases involving unusual death circumstances and unexplained recoveries. Dr. Ashford brought advanced medical instruments, including a newly invented stethoscope and precision thermometers. Her preliminary examination of the photographic evidence confirmed Professor Wheaton's findings. The subject displays all visual characteristics consistent with living human physiology, she reported. Proper coloration, natural posture, appropriate response to environmental lighting conditions. Dr. Ashford requested permission to interview family members about Thomas's final days. William Whitmore provided detailed accounts of his brother's mysterious illness. Thomas complained constantly of feeling cold. William testified under oath. Even beside roaring fires, he wore multiple layers and shivered uncontrollably. Charles Whitmore recalled stranger symptoms. Thomas began sleeping during daylight hours. He claimed sunlight caused severe headaches and preferred complete darkness. Robert Whitmore noted behavioral changes. Thomas lost interest in food entirely. For 2 weeks before his death, he consumed nothing but water and refused all meals. Dr. Ashford's medical training recognized these symptoms as incompatible with typical cardiac conditions. The pattern suggested something far more unusual affecting Thomas's physiology. Her private notes, discovered decades later, contained a disturbing hypothesis. Patient exhibits characteristics consistent with systematic bodily shutdown preceding clinical death. However, cognitive functions and personality remained intact throughout deterioration process. Possibility exists that consciousness survived physical expiration through unknown mechanism. This theory challenged fundamental medical understanding of death as absolute cessation. We were witnessing something that existed in the space between life and death. November 3rd, 1889, brought the first direct encounter with Thomas Whitmore since his burial. Sarah Mitchell, the estate's head housekeeper, discovered him in a library at 11:45 p.m. She had entered to bank the evening fire when she found him reading beside the hearth. Thomas sat in his customary leather chair, turning pages of a familiar astronomy book. "Good evening, Sarah," he said without looking up from the text. His voice carried the same warm tone she'd known for 15 years of service. Sarah's testimony, recorded by Sheriff Benjamin Crawford the following morning, provides crucial details. Master Thomas appeared exactly as he always did, dressed in his brown wool suit. His skin looked healthy, his movements natural, his speech clear and measured. I asked if he required anything for comfort, and he thanked me politely as usual. Only when Thomas turned toward the firelight did Sarah notice the change. His shadow fell correctly across the wall behind his chair, but the reflection in the window glass showed only an empty seat. Sarah's scream echoed through the estate's corridors, waking the entire household. By the time William and Charles reached the library, Thomas had vanished. The leather chair retained warmth from recent occupation. The astronomy book lay open to a chapter about stellar death and regeneration. Sheriff Crawford arrived within an hour, accompanied by his deputy and Dr. Hartwell. Their investigation revealed physical evidence confirming Sarah's account. Fresh fingerprints covered the book's pages, matching Thomas's distinctive whirls and patterns. A warm impression remained in the chair's cushion, sized appropriately for Thomas's frame. Most disturbing, they discovered new writing in the book's margins. Thomas's handwriting filled empty spaces with notes about transitional states between existence. The ink appeared fresh, still slightly wet despite the November cold. Carbon analysis later confirmed the writing occurred within hours of discovery. Dr. Hartwell's examination of the scene triggered another psychological breakdown. "He's neither alive nor dead," Hartwell muttered repeatedly. "Something between states, something that shouldn't exist in Christian creation." Sheriff Crawford sealed the library and posted armed guards throughout the estate. But locks and weapons proved ineffective against Thomas's nocturnal wanderings. The boy had become something that transcended physical barriers and mortal limitations. The pattern of encounters escalated throughout November, following an increasingly disturbing rhythm. Thomas appeared every third night, always between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. His manifestations occurred in different rooms: the study, dining hall, conservatory, and once in the wine cellar. Each appearance lasted exactly 15 minutes, timed by multiple witnesses with pocket watches. Dr. Ashford established a scientific observation protocol, documenting every detail methodically. She positioned calibrated instruments throughout the estate to record environmental changes. Temperature dropped precisely 11 degrees during each manifestation. Electromagnetic readings showed unusual fluctuations on a brass galvanometer borrowed from Albany College. Photographic plates left exposed in occupied rooms developed strange interference patterns. The images showed Thomas clearly, but surrounded by undefined shadows that moved independently. Professor Wheaton returned with additional equipment, including a newly invented phonograph cylinder. They successfully recorded Thomas's voice during the November 12th encounter. The cylinder preserved 23 words. "The boundary between states grows thin. I exist in spaces between breath and stillness." His vocal patterns matched previous recordings made during family gatherings in 1888. But spectral analysis revealed frequencies below normal human vocal ranges. Dr. Ashford attempted direct communication during the November 15th manifestation. "Thomas, can you explain your current condition?" she asked from across the dining room. Thomas looked directly at her with clear, intelligent eyes. "Death is not cessation," he replied in measured tones. "It is transformation into a state your science cannot comprehend. I am become something between your understanding of life and void." The conversation continued for 7 more minutes, recorded stenographically by Professor Wheaton's assistant. Thomas described experiencing existence as simultaneous presence and absence. He claimed awareness of both his buried body and his walking consciousness. "Time moves differently in this condition," Thomas explained patiently. "Past and present occupy the same moment, separated only by perception." When asked about his intentions, Thomas's expression grew sorrowful. "I seek resolution to this incomplete state," he said. "But the path forward remains hidden from my altered understanding." At precisely midnight, Thomas faded from view like dissipating morning mist. The room's temperature returned to normal within minutes. His words suggested consciousness trapped between two incompatible states of being. December arrived with unseasonable warmth, as if nature itself recoiled from the supernatural presence haunting Millbrook County. Temperature readings averaged 15 degrees above normal for 3 consecutive weeks. Dr. Ashford's meteorological instruments detected atmosphere pressure fluctuations corresponding exactly to Thomas's manifestation schedule. The local wildlife began exhibiting disturbing behavioral changes that defied zoological explanation. Birds abandoned their nests despite mild weather, migrating south in unprecedented numbers. Domestic animals refused to enter the Whitmore estate grounds, cowering when forced near the property line. Even insects avoided the area. No moths gathered around evening lamps. No spiders built webs in corners. The estate existed within an ecological void that expanded nightly. Professor Wheaton documented electromagnetic anomalies using his most sensitive detection equipment. Compass needles spun wildly within 50 yards of the main house. Telegraph lines frequently failed during transmission attempts, producing only static and incomprehensible noise. The local church bell tower clock stopped at 11:47 p.m. every night, the exact time of Thomas's recorded death. Father Flynn blessed the estate grounds repeatedly, performing exorcism rituals borrowed from ancient church doctrine. His efforts produced no measurable results, though he reported feeling observed by unseen intelligence. On December 8th, Thomas appeared simultaneously in 3 different rooms. Sarah Mitchell encountered him in the kitchen at 11:35 p.m. William Whitmore found him in the study at the same moment. Charles discovered him standing in the front hallway, all 3 witnesses confirming identical timing. Each manifestation displayed perfect physical consistency. Same clothing, same mannerisms, same facial expressions. Dr. Ashford's instruments registered triple the usual electromagnetic disturbance. Temperature dropped 33 degrees throughout the house simultaneously. The phonograph cylinders recorded 3 separate conversations occurring in parallel. Thomas discussed different topics with each family member, demonstrating complete awareness of individual concerns and personal histories. Yet his responses revealed knowledge acquired after his burial date. He mentioned recent business transactions, political developments, and family decisions made during his absence. This impossible omniscience suggested consciousness unbound by temporal or spatial limitations. The implications shattered conventional understanding of individual identity and singular existence. Professor Wheaton's final report concluded, "Subject exhibits characteristics of distributed consciousness operating through unknown mechanism." Dr. Ashford added, "We are witnessing intelligence that transcends physical mortality while retaining human personality structures." Their scientific documentation provided evidence for possibilities that challenged the foundation of material reality. Thomas Whitmore had become something that existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The Christmas season of 1889 brought no peace to the Whitmore household or surrounding community. Thomas's manifestations increased to nightly occurrences, each lasting progressively longer periods. His appearances now extended from 11:30 p.m. until dawn, maintaining constant presence throughout darkness. During daylight hours, the estate fell silent with an oppressive stillness that unnerved even seasoned investigators. Dr. Ashford established permanent residence in the guest quarters, conducting round-the-clock observations. Her detailed logs revealed patterns suggesting Thomas's condition was evolving towards some unknown resolution. Subject displays increasing solidity and environmental interaction capability, she noted on December 18th. Thomas now left permanent impressions in furniture, manipulated physical objects, and consumed small quantities of water. His shadow appeared consistently in mirrors and reflective surfaces, though earlier manifestations cast no reflection. Most significantly, photographs captured his image with increasing clarity and definition. Professor Wheaton's latest portraits showed Thomas as vivid and substantial as any living person. Yet medical examinations revealed impossible physiological readings that defied biological explanation. His pulse registered at 12 beats per minute, far below levels compatible with human life. Body temperature remained constant at 74 degrees, regardless of environmental conditions. Respiratory rate measured 2 breaths per minute, with each exhalation lasting nearly 30 seconds. Dr. Ashford's stethoscope detected heartbeats that echoed strangely, as if originating from great distances. Blood pressure readings fluctuated wildly between 0 and dangerously elevated levels within minutes. These measurements suggested a cardiovascular system operating according to unknown principles. On December 22nd, Thomas spoke directly about his transformed condition during an extended interview. "I occupy the boundary between states your science recognizes as mutually exclusive," he explained patiently. "Death and life exist simultaneously within this form you perceive as singular. My consciousness experiences both the stillness of the grave and the motion of breath." Professor Wheaton asked about the mechanism enabling this impossible existence. Thomas considered the question carefully before responding with disturbing clarity. "The transition was incomplete," he said, "neither fully released nor properly retained. I exist in the space between departure and arrival, suspended by circumstances beyond mortal comprehension. His words carried weight of knowledge acquired through direct experience of mortality's threshold. Dr. Ashford pressed for more specific details about the transformation process. Thomas's expression grew distant, as if accessing memories from an incomprehensible source. The moment of cessation revealed doors your kind cannot perceive, he whispered. I chose to remain partially present rather than complete the crossing. Now I am bound to this intermediate state until the balance achieves proper resolution. The mechanism that trapped consciousness between states was approaching critical instability. January 15th, 1890 marked the beginning of the final phase in Thomas Whitmore's supernatural existence. His manifestations began occurring during daylight hours, visible to dozens of witnesses throughout Millbrook County. Workers at the textile mill reported seeing Thomas walking through the factory floors at midday. Store clerks in the town center served him during normal business hours, accepting payment in coins that later vanished. Children playing in the town square waved to him as he passed, receiving friendly responses and familiar smiles. These daytime appearances eliminated theories about collective hallucination or nighttime hysteria affecting observers. Dr. Ashford documented over 40 separate witness accounts from reliable sources, including the mayor, bank president, and schoolmaster. Each testimony described identical physical characteristics and behavioral patterns consistent with Thomas's known personality. Yet simultaneous investigations of his grave revealed the coffin remained sealed and empty. The burial clothes inside retained body warmth and showed signs of recent wear. Father Flynn's examinations confirmed no physical disturbance of the cemetery grounds or gravesite. Thomas existed simultaneously in multiple locations while maintaining no fixed corporeal presence. Professor Wheaton's measurements detected increasing instability in the electromagnetic phenomena surrounding manifestations. Compass readings fluctuated more violently. Telegraph equipment failed permanently within the estate vicinity. The church clock tower mechanism broke completely, its hands frozen at 11:47 p.m. Local physicians reported an epidemic of sleep disorders affecting nearly every household in Millbrook. Residents complained of dreams featuring Thomas Whitmore speaking about approaching resolution. These shared visions contained identical dialogue and imagery, suggesting external influence on collective unconscious experience. Dr. Ashford's sleep study participants described Thomas explaining, "The boundary weakens. Balance demands restoration." On January 28th, Thomas appeared before the entire Whitmore family during Sunday dinner. He materialized gradually, becoming solid and present over several minutes of observation. "The time for choosing approaches," he announced in clear, carrying tones. "I must complete the crossing or remain bound to this incomplete existence forever." William asked what choice Thomas faced, though the answer filled him with dread. To accept full death and cross into whatever lies beyond perception, Thomas replied solemnly, or to abandon mortality entirely and become something your world was never meant to contain. The implications of either option terrified everyone present. Thomas's continued existence violated natural law, but his complete transformation threatened worse consequences. Dr. Ashford realized they were witnessing a critical juncture in metaphysical reality. Either outcome would fundamentally alter the relationship between life and death. The family faced an impossible decision that would determine not just Thomas's fate, but the stability of existence itself. February 1st would bring the moment of irreversible choice. February 1st, 1890 dawned with an ominous stillness that seemed to suspend time itself. At exactly 11:47 a.m., 12 hours before Thomas's original death time, the manifestations ceased completely. The electromagnetic disturbances stopped, compasses pointed true north, and the estate's oppressive atmosphere lifted. For the first time in 4 months, birds returned to sing in the Whitmore family trees. Dr. Ashford's instruments registered normal readings throughout the property. Professor Wheaton's photographic equipment detected no unusual phenomena during extensive testing. The sudden absence of supernatural activity created more anxiety than its presence had generated. At 6:30 p.m., Thomas appeared one final time in the estate's main parlor. His form seemed more solid and present than during any previous manifestation. The entire family gathered, along with Dr. Ashford, Professor Wheaton, and Father Flynn. Thomas's expression carried profound sadness mixed with resolution and peaceful acceptance. "The balance requires completion," he stated with quiet finality. "I have chosen a cross completely rather than remain suspended between states. This existence serves neither the living nor the properly dead." He embraced each family member, his touch warm and substantial as any living person's. To Dr. Ashford, he said, "Your documentation will help others understand what you witnessed here." To Professor Wheaton, "Science and mystery need not be enemies when seeking truth." To Father Flynn, "Faith and knowledge serve the same ultimate purpose." At precisely 11:47 p.m., Thomas began fading gradually from view. His final words echoed through the parlor. "Remember that death is not cessation, but transformation into states beyond current comprehension." The manifestation dissolved completely at midnight, leaving only the scent of bay rum, cologne, and tobacco. Thomas Whitmore never appeared again in any form or location. His grave, when examined the following morning, contained his physical remains in normal state of decomposition. The burial clothes lay properly positioned, no longer warm or recently disturbed. The case files were sealed by county authorities on February 15, 1890. Dr. Ashford's scientific reports were archived in the Albany Institute basement, classified for 50 years. Professor Wheaton's photographs were donated to the Millbrook Historical Society in 1923. In 1954, renovation workers discovered the sealed investigation files behind a false wall in the county courthouse. The documents revealed evidence of similar cases throughout New England between 1887 and 1891. 12 other families reported identical circumstances. Premature burial followed by impossible manifestations. Each case involved young adults who died of mysterious ailments during the same 3-year period. All investigations were sealed, all evidence suppressed, all witnesses sworn to secrecy. If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe and turn on notifications for the next file. Disclaimer: this script is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, institutions, and incidents are invented or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental, created solely for entertainment.